Aha, there it is. It is Wednesday at 10, right on time today. Got a little bit of an earlier start. I don't know why, but I did. And so I didn't change the what we're painting sign because there is going to be a little painting and taping, and actually a little bit of sanding also. I'm recalling that there was a piece that I spackled. So let's see, what can I talk about for, I don't know, an hour and a half so I can avoid doing anything today. Yeah, what's in the box? Well, what's in the box is the stuff I painted yesterday. And I put it in the box because I carried it up to a well-ventilated place and brought it back down. So there is the insides of stuff. That's what? Oh, that's tape. I'm looking at it and saying, "Oh, is that flashing that I didn't clean?" No, it was tape. So there, that was what was in the box. So I guess I can start today by unmasking some of these things. This is this will never be seen. I don't know why I even bothered wasting paint on it, but I did. Hopefully, if everything is constructed correctly, you won't be able to see this, but just in case. So this side, which is all nicely covered up, is supposed to be painted gold, and I didn't want that to be painted this greenish color, this kind of primer color, so I taped it over. Yeah, so it's now the tape is just in the way, so I can take it off and reveal that, in fact, it is still white, which is the primer color. And the edges aren't painted, which is just fine. Bits of tape in some of these, I covered these up so that the paint didn't come through and paint the inside. And when I paint this side, I'll be having to remember to tape these also so that the gold paint doesn't get onto the back of this where it will never be seen, even if it did. Anyway, this served its purpose. See, there's a nice little taped rectangle there. There, that's now trash. So this is an interior component of the service module. And the way it works is that this interior component attaches here like that and goes into the other side of these. I don't want these all scratched up. I'm going to put a paper towel down here so that it doesn't just rub against the cardboard. These sides, these bits, are where I'm going to be doing painting today. These wires, these conduits here that go all the way across need to be painted silver. And then some of this piping here, piping in boxes, will be painted various shades of silvery as well. Anyway, yeah, that's when I get around to painting, that's what it's going to be. But this is the side that matters. This is the bottom. This is the top. And I might as well take this off. And then you can see what is to be done. Masking tape is always kind of amazing because it works. I'm always surprised by that. I mean, every time I've been doing like painting walls and houses in our house and stuff for years and decades and mask the woodwork and stuff, and it always seems to work. It's really kind of a magical thing. So how this works is that this goes in those little groove things. Go in at the same time. It sets in there really nicely. There, like that. Oh, that got a little bit. I'm going to have to watch that when I tape it, because that little bit there needs to be gold. So anyway, yeah, if you look at it from the side, if I can get these parts in, this is surprisingly difficult to do. You know, it's just, there's these little channels, right? There's even an alignment pin. And you would think all it needs to happen is that it just needs to set in there like that. But it wobbles. Yeah, the thing needs to be put in like just absolutely perfectly, or else it doesn't set at all, which is probably fine because it needs to align itself. Anyway, and I sometimes will try to put the top on too, but that's not going to work today. So all this part that's white will be painted gold because that's the color of the inside of the service module. And then components go in that were constructed previously. There's 3 shelves that go here that hold different tanks and fuel cells. At least they represent those. And then there's a big cylindrical sump tank here that represents one of the fuel tanks. These bumps on here are the tops. And there's similar ones on the bottom of the fuel tanks for the service module engine, which is a really important engine because that's the thing that slows this whole thing down to go into lunar orbit, and later on takes it out of lunar orbit. And if that engine didn't work, well, then they either wouldn't get to the moon or they wouldn't get back. So that's an important thing. Anyway, what I will be doing at some point is masking the green part, just like I had masked this little part. I'll be masking the green part so that when I spray paint this gold to match these bits, the gold doesn't go on to there. Yeah, this went a little bit over, but hopefully that'll get covered with gold paint and won't show. Anyway, yeah, there's that. So these parts, both sides of this, and then this and this and this are going to be painted gold. And once those are painted gold, I'll be able to assemble the interior of the service module with all the parts that are in the box over there that you can't see because they're over there. But before I paint these bits gold, we have the detail on the outside of the bulkheads, the bottom and the top, that need to be painted. And so today I will be getting out the little bitty brush and attempting to put silver paint on the detail without getting it onto the green part. And if I do, I'm hoping that I'll be able to use a little bits of the spray paint into a container that will allow me to touch the tiny little spots that have become a flaw. So on this one, the instructions say all of the raised areas, not the boxes, but these conduits, including this, need to be painted silver. But when I look at the box now, just check. Yeah, it ends right there. So that's that. I don't have any real clues about this. There's some pretty significant piping here, okay? Piping and wiring. And I've got different shades of silver paint that you've noticed before, all the way from really bright silver to almost black silver. I've got that too. And so far, I've been using these Viejo Metallics, these metal colors. These are airbrush colors. They flow really nicely and cover well with using hardly any paint. But they are made for an airbrush, and so they are very thin. And for this particular kind of work, what can happen is because they are thin, they will sometimes just keep running. Okay, unless they're dabbed on really, really lightly. So I'm going to be using these, which gives me a range of 4 different shades of silvery colors, all the way from really bright silver. I might not be using that to this color that I'll be using for these conduits here, and then probably be using gunmetal for this piping and silver for some of the wiring. And I might use the really dark color for like some brackets, like there's a bracket here that are obvious. So pretty much all of the spaghetti stuff that you see on here, except for the round parts, which are the bases of the, oh my. That's unfortunate. There, it broke off. There was a molding flaw, a piece of plastic that shouldn't have been there. There are, in fact, circles on each of these, but they are in the center of the tanks. So I'm assuming that was like kind of part of the construction. Otherwise, I would have sanded them off. Anyway, I'm going to do my best to get the paint where I want it and not get it where I don't, using these paints a little bit later. Let's see. It says it's recording. The music's not playing. I guess things are working okay so far. So I said I'd be doing a little sanding. I'm going to just get that done now because otherwise I'm going to forget. I don't want to forget that. For some reason, there was a slot in this part. This is a cover that goes on the very back of this, like this. It has to line up just right. There, like this. And the service module rocket nozzle bell goes in here. And there's openings here for these, whatever they are. Okay, look like little radiators. I think they are actually radiators. There's a bracket that goes here for fold down antenna, but there was just this slot that looked like something needed to go into it, but there isn't anything that goes into it. So I covered it with spackle, and I'm going to sand that down so the surface is smooth on both sides. I don't know why it was there. If it needs to be there for some reason, I can break it out and do that later. So I'm going to take this stuff, since I'm going to be making dust, I'm going to move this stuff over here, stand here, and then I'll clean this off. Yeah, and I put the sandpaper there. Thing, the 2000 grit to do a polish on it, and the 600 grit to actually sand it down. And I'm going to try using this as my making do sanding block. I'm going to try this. I don't want to sand any more of the surface than is absolutely necessary. The spackle is pretty soft, so it sands pretty kind of quickly, which is good. Different. Carefully brush this right onto the floor. There we go. There's a little bit. The thing with the spackle is that sometimes it it seems, it actually looks like it worked pretty well. This, trying to keep the surface texture. You know, if there were any scratch marks, just get them out. Yay. You can still see it because there's a slight color variation, but there isn't a hole there anymore. Do the same thing on this side. Yeah, well, too bad there isn't any music playing. That issue with the Nakarada music has not been completely resolved yet, and so in order to make sure that our stream isn't like, I don't know what they do with it, they flag it or something as having a problem, and then nobody watches it, and that misses the point. We had been using music by Alexander Nakarada, who owns the copyright and has given us permission to use it, but somebody was disputing his work somehow or other. I don't keep up with that part of it. I'm old and grumpy, and I do sanding and a little bit of painting and mutter on about stuff. But apparently there's some sort of issue about ownership of the music and claiming rights, and it hasn't been resolved. And that means that in order to make sure that we don't get flagged in some way that would keep our many, many dozens of fans watching our stream. Yeah. We'll sort of feel that, right? You're aware or why. So the music isn't playing, so I try my best to fill the space with mutterings about 1960s television, basically. I did talk about, the experience of growing up with the space program, the whole space race sort of thing. That was pretty exciting. We actually took it really seriously. Like what would happen if the Russians got to the moon first? I don't know. What happened after we got to the moon first? What happened was no one went back to the moon again. What was that? Mid-70s? Yeah, great. 50 years. That makes me feel even older than I feel. Yeah. So 50 years after we've last people went on the moon, no one's gone back to the moon. So I guess that shows just how critical that was. But now we're going to go back to the moon because why not? This is sort of a new space race happening, I guess. No, I'm not saying it wasn't a wonderful thing to go to the moon. It was. It was an amazing achievement. And the promise of space flight, brought to you by, all of the movies and television shows about space flight and exploring brave new worlds and all of that. And I mean, if that had happened, that would have been pretty cool. 2001 Space Odyssey didn't happen. 2010 didn't happen. It's all really pretty disappointing, to be honest. But in celebration of 50 years of going to the moon, and because of all of the models that I've got here, all like 30 of them or something that I stored up in anticipation of being bored silly when I retired, and it turned out not to be the case. This one was the fan favorite, and so I'm building the Apollo stack, and I have completed the escape launch tower, and I'm working on the service module now. These are the wordless, more or less wordless instructions. The words that are in here, like reaction control housing right half, are worthless. Engine nozzle left half, engine nozzle right half. Seriously? What if you turned the parts over and the right was on the left and the left was on the right? Would you not then be able to assemble it? I don't know. It's there it is. Not very helpful at all. Except I guess I can, you can call out what the parts are. Like door hinge. Yeah. And door. The door hinge goes on the door. Yay. But yeah, we know now that this is a fuel cell, the one that'll go on the top of the inside of the door. And the bottom is an oxidizer tank. And the tiny little bit in the middle is a helium tank. There's not much helium in the service module. Anyway, yeah, all these parts are pretty much ready to go as soon as they're painted. So I guess, I don't know, I guess I should just mutter on for a while yet before I decide to start painting. I'm a bit anxious about doing this because there's just a lot of little lines that need to be painted silver, and there's a great opportunity to make a mess of it. But I've used up a half hour, and I've gotten some sanding done. That was the sanding of the day. I guess I need to do the stuff. Okay. And we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be using my head magnifier for this. I probably should have charged it. If the light goes out, it really makes a difference. It's a little LED light that really makes a big difference in terms of being able to paint it. And if it goes out, well, I guess I'll recharge it over break. Yeah, I can't get anywhere until this is done, really. So I guess I better get on with it. I am using the second lightest of the 4 tones, color tones, those metallic paint. Vallejo has a model color series and a game color series. I guess, one is supposed to be used for like military models and things like that, and the game colors are from minifigs and so on, but we haven't really been paying a huge amount of attention or following direction about which is which, but rather just picking the color that seems to work the best. Now we've got a bunch of them here that I've used from time to time on all of our minifigs. Oh, good. Yeah. Sometimes you get, the vortex spinner thing here that stirs the paint. It'll move the camera. If I get the vibration just right. There we go. The main challenge here will be getting the paint in the right spots. The secondary challenge will be to try to keep it on camera while I am getting the paint on the right spots, or wrong spots, as the case may be. See how I do at each of those tasks. So this paint is more viscous than the airbrush paint. So it's more likely to stay where I put it, but it also doesn't flow quite as flat. Okay, well, I can certainly see it better when it's magnified 2 times over. So there's these brackets that go across as well, and those are supposed to be painted gold later. And I will attempt to do that. Yeah, I definitely am going silent here. So if this didn't take twice as much concentration as I have available, I would probably be talking about 60s TV. So what would I talk about today? I have spent some time in the past talking about theme songs. Back in the day when television shows all had theme songs. And some of them were okay. Some of them were kind of catchy, even if they didn't say anything. Like the Mr. Ed one, which consisted largely, at least for the most part, repeating horse and course. It was very catchy. It didn't say anything. Because a horse is a horse, of course. And no one can talk to a horse, of course. It is a course unless the horse. See that? See how repetition. The rhyming is kind of a cheat, just rhyming horse and course over and over and over again. Although following that, it does get a little better. when you talk about how people yakety yak away and waste your time of day. Mr. Ed will never talk or never speak unless he has something to say. Right to the source and ask the horse. He'll give you the answer that you'll endorse. The rhyme gets much better at that point, using more words than horse and course. Yeah. I complained about this one too. The Wyatt Earp song was hilarious. Mayonnaised Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp, Wyatt Earp. Brave, courageous, and bold. Which seems redundant, right? Brave, courageous, and bold. Really? You can't just be one of them. You have to be all three synonyms. Name and long live his glory, and long may his story be told. Now, I think that last bit about long may his story be told was just kind of a plug for the show itself, because that was, they were telling the story. They weren't telling it honestly, but I think basically they were saying is, long may his story be told. Please keep this show on the air, for at least another season. Get the paint over the side a little bit further. Kind of paints evenly on one side, and then I rotate it, 180 degrees and come back on the other side. Starts to congeal. Look at the real history of Wyatt. Maybe he was brave, courageous, and bold, but he wasn't a particularly good guy. I mean, really, he really wasn't. He was kind of like all the other, just trying to make a living by running brothels and buying low, selling high, grifting a little bit. But growing up, we learned that he was some sort of major Western hero because got his own TV show. I mean, not the real Wyatt Earp. The real Wyatt Earp had already died, so it wasn't the real Wyatt Earp. It was the actor portraying Wyatt Earp. Yeah, got to be considered to be a really huge hero kind of person. Well, the edges are not too bad, actually. The paint gets thick faster. I have to, I don't know, there's a compromise there. If I squeeze out less paint, then it will congeal even faster because of the surface area kind of thing. So just, break through the surface film. Get the paint on. All those guys had their own TV shows. There was a Wyatt Earp one and a Daniel Boone one. Remember that? Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. Big plug for Tennessee in that song. Okay, so the brackets will be painted gold later. So there's that. There's this long kind of sinuous thing going here. Sort of conduit for something. Anyway, yeah, they all had their own theme songs. It was pretty good, and the theme songs always named them. Which made sense. I mean, you're watching a TV show, you want to know which one you're watching. Yeah, this is about Davy Crockett. How do you know? Well, they just said so in the theme song. We're in the mountaintop of Tennessee, the greatest state in the land of the free. I don't know. I bet, people from other places might disagree with that, but that's how the song went, and so that's what we heard. His claim to fame was that he killed the bar. And I don't think that meant, the Association of Attorneys killed the bar when he was only 3. Great. And so the kid turns out to be a bear murderer. Is a toddler. Oh, well. That was one of his claims to fame. King of the Wild Frontier. See, this paint kind of behaves in the sense that it stays where you put it, but it doesn't level quite as well as those other metallics. So even at this tiny scale, it kind of leaves brush marks. Yeah, this is mostly on. Hi, I am doing okay today. I am doing relaxing. Well, I'm not relaxed while I'm painting because I'm painting tiny little stuff. But I'm painting conduits in the upper and lower bulkheads of the service module. The thing du jour. So far I've got, you can see the silvery stuff. It looks like I've got about a third of it done. And it's looking okay. It's not perfect, but I'm landing, I think I'm landing firmly in the B range, you know, even a B plus in terms of how this is looking. What I'm not sure about is right here at the end, it comes to an end here. There's like a cap, and I'm not sure whether that should be colored the same color as the pipes or as the brackets. I'm thinking I'm going to paint that the same color as the brackets. Okay. There's a little bit, there's a problem right there. Right there, I got the silver paint in where it shouldn't be. So I'm going to try a little later to touch that up with the gray-green paint. Just a dot of it, but I'm not going to try to do any gray-green touch-up until near the end of this effort here. But once this is done here, and the piping, all the piping and stuff on the bottom of the service module, I will then move on to taping them and getting them ready to be painted gold so that I can do some assembly, some initial assembly of the service module. Then it will actually start looking like something. That happened with the submarine. You just have all these tiny little parts, most of which were painted in some fashion. It's kind of laying around in the bottom of a box or a tray, and it doesn't look like anything's happening until they're actually assembled. And the same thing's kind of happening with this, is that a whole lot of stuff's been done on the service module, but it doesn't look like anything's really happening because it's just parts. In this case, it's not even a part. It's just little lines on a part that are getting painted. I love the boxes for these. The same thing on the submarine. It just said, if you choose to paint your model. And it's like, why would you assemble something like this without painting it? Just gluing it together in the white plastic. Well, one reason is you'd actually be able to finish the model sometime during one's lifetime. The other might be that you're 9 years old and that's the best you can do. You little lines. Jeez. I've said this before. One of the things that would make this much easier is if the scale was at least twice this size, which would make for a pretty gigantic model. But the painting would be easier because you could actually see the parts. I plug away at it. Try not to screw it up. So it's like when painting these like rounded surfaces, like the tops of these conduits. I don't know how people who really know what they're doing do it, but the way I do it is pretty much, controlling it by the angle of the brush to the surface, painting from the top down and only as far down as is essential. Yeah, there's quite a lattice work there. Yeah, that's there's a lot more. Doesn't seem to be any shortage of conduits on this. The brackets that hold these conduits are supposed to be painted gold. I'm not really sure why. I would think that they could just be like bronze or brass or something. We got a couple of different gold tones. So look at them. Pick one. But the brackets are pretty obvious, so they clearly do need to be painted. And I guess they'll be painted some sort of gold color to, obey the instructions. You might have noticed I can only paint in one direction. Okay. And so in order to get the other side of this pipe, to rotate it 180 degrees in order to get the cross members 90 degrees. Checking the box top. These cross things here are not painted silver. They're like some sort of bracket. Yeah, I think they hold the pipes. I think they'll end up being painted that gold color of the whatever color the brackets end up being. These are continuations of those three pipes. I wonder what happened to the other one. There's 4 going in and only 3 coming out. One of them just stopped being a pipe. So there is here's one little piece of theme song history here that's kind of interesting. Only I don't know if this ever happened more than once, but I know that there was one instance in which a theme song was changed. That piece, I have to check that. Sorry, there's just little weird things on the piping that I'm not sure how it works. Trying to stay true to the box top, and I'm making the assumption, which may be correct or may not be, that the people who painted the model that was appeared on the box top knew what they were doing. Trying to match what they did. So sorry for that digression, but I just wanted to check. There's this little thing that comes across here, and it looked like it should have been maybe a T on the pipe. It's just a bracket. I'm really tempted to paint it silver because it looks like it should be, even though it's not that way on the box top. Because it looks like it goes into something. I'm going to do that. Highlight the sanctity of the box top cover. Painting scheme. And do a little ad-libbing there, because I think it would look better. Anyway, what I was saying was that there is an instance in which the theme song was changed because of complaints from the cast. You know which one it was? Hmm? You're right. It was Gilligan's Island. Gilligan's Island theme song changed. No, not to just refresh it or make it different or something. Members of the cast complained about that. But like many theme songs, like the Jetsons theme song, you know, where they just name the members of the family. Meet George Jetson, Jane, his wife, Elroy, daughter Judy. Not the most creative theme song, but at least we knew who the family members of the Jetsons were, right? There's that. Yogi Bear. We knew that that was about Yogi Bear, because that's pretty much all they said was Yogi Bear, Yogi Bear, Yogi Bear, right, over and over. But yeah, on Gilligan's Island, there was Gilligan, the skipper too, the millionaire and his wife, the movie star, and the rest. After a couple of seasons, the rest got restless and demanded a place in the theme song. Later on, it was Gilligan, the skipper too, the millionaire and his wife, the movie star, and the professor and Mary Ann. They got their due. They got to be named as characters. And what's interesting about it, I don't know if anything's really interesting about it, but one of the things about it, whether you find it interesting or not, is that as a result of that, Mary Ann became only the second character on Gilligan's Island that was named in the theme song. I mean, of course, Gilligan was named because it was Gilligan's Island, right? But Mary Ann got named. Everybody else was referred to by what they did or what they had or what their relationship was. You know, so there was a millionaire and his wife. That was kind of a typical thing back then. You know, she wasn't the millionaire. What if she was the one who had the money? You ever consider that? Should. What if she was the one who had the money? The millionaire and her boy toy, you know? Could have. Well, I suppose if the show had come on later, you know, when a boy toy would have been a thing, show that possibly could have happened. You know, even the skipper wasn't named. He was just the skipper. Star and the professor, but apparently Mary Ann didn't have a thing going. What did Mary Ann do anyway? How was she able to afford getting aboard the mighty minnow? If it's any indication that she was like dating the professor or anything. She was just there. Just there on the minnow, taking a 3-hour tour. Although I'm not sure, I don't know, how expensive could that be? You know, you look at the people on board and you get the impression that maybe this was a really expensive tour because one of them was a millionaire, another was a movie star. Although professors didn't really make much money ever, you know, people watching the show didn't know that. They always, you know, you thought that being a professor was a deal, you know, was a something. Tenured somewhere anyway. So they could all afford to get on the minnow. No matter how much the captain was the skipper, no matter how much the skipper was charging. Anyway, yeah, the professor and Marianne pitched a fit, and they changed the theme song. They changed the whole last bit of the theme song. Fortunately, they were able to squeeze that in without messing up the tune. And Marianne worked out. There a little bit of debris here. Good. I'm just doing tiny little bits of paint. It attaches to these boxes. Okay, well, that seems to come out okay. I'm still not sure what to do about these ends. Definitely not the pipe color, though. I might just leave them green. Okay. And then the sides here, these are radiators. Okay, there's a radiator here. And oh yeah, there's radiators here and here. These are pretty significant radiators. I think I'm going to paint the radiator metallic as well, even though it doesn't call for it. Well, this one isn't. Those are radiators. This is just one of these boxes. So I'm just looking to make sure that I've got silver paint where I want silver paint. And then I've got to paint these brackets a gold color, including these here. There's tiny little spots on this one there that need to be painted the greenish color. I'll do those at the end. I'm hoping that it works. I've done that before, where I've been able to use the spray paint or touch-up paint. Find a goldish color. Going to use the polished gold. That's too bright. This is gold. That might work. What color is this? Bright brass. I really think brass would look better on there than gold, but the instructions say gold because it's, anyway, I guess it's a limited availability of colors. I'm going to look at the color chart. Brass, that might actually look pretty good as a bracket. This is my highly sophisticated color chart. Just splotches of paint on a piece of paper. And actually, copper would look good, but there's nothing that calls for copper anywhere. I didn't do bronze anywhere here on my color chart. Huh, weird. Yeah, the copper would look really pretty decent, but I'm going to use brass instead of gold. just for this purpose. I think it'll look good. Bronze would be too dark. It would kind of miss the point of what we were trying to do there. I'm going to put the gold away. Brass. Okay. Well, here we go. Mix up the brass paint. I've always, every time I put these on, I'm surprised at how much difference the little LED light makes when aiming. Great. Just, well, now there's brass paint scattered all over the place. Sometimes that happens with these little squeeze bottles. It just, way too much comes out at once. So Marianne, after the professor and Marianne pitched a fit about the theme song, got to be named. Just like Gilligan. And she got to be named because she didn't have a social role. What else about that? Other things is that the first named character was the very first character in the theme song, Gilligan. And the other named character, Marianne, was the very last one. There were no names in the middle of the theme song. Just at the very beginning and very end. So how about that? What does that mean? Anything? No. But anyway, I thought that was kind of, interesting. I don't know of any other occurrence like that where the theme song had to be changed. Insistence of the cast members. So if that ever happened in another setting, that's something you can put up in social media as in the comment section. Dice and Dungeons comment section about modification of theme songs because of the objection of the cast. So that was a thing you know, the professor and Marianne. Mean to imply that they were a thing, but the changing of the theme song on their insistence was a thing. That was the thing I was talking about. Okay, well, those are some brackets. Do some more brackets up here. Yeah, I think this brass color is working out okay. Why is it not? As I say that, it stopped working. These come down on the side like this. So I have to. This is a lot easier when you're like 23, right? You get a really steady hand, decent eyesight, probably better tools. It ends up looking better too, but I am doing the best I can. It'll to me. Okay. So those are the brass colored brackets. I don't know if they show up much on camera, but there they are. There's some more here. They span a bigger distance. Looking at this again. This is an extension of that pipe. It's not a bracket. It needs to be painted silver. It's not painted that way on the box top. But as I'm looking at it through these, it's not a bracket that goes over it. It is in fact an extension of the pipe and comes up and goes over the other two pipes. So definitely needs to be painted the pipe color. I'll go back to that and do that. It's just as I'm looking at it again, as I'm painting these brackets, that it's very clearly not a bracket. I'm not sure what the intent, I don't know how it really worked. Service module, but it wasn't something holding the pipe in place. It is, in fact, part of the pipe. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a T that comes off of that pipe. This one and that one both go there. Out of place. I shouldn't have gotten it. I've got two tiny little spots that need to be fixed at this point. Okay. That bracket needs a little bit more brass on it. That one I missed altogether there. Okay, this is I'm going to say this is solid B work. Okay, it's not perfect. Like I didn't paint the side of the bracket. But for me, it's pretty good. So I got a spot there and a little spot there that if I can get the spray paint to work as a touch-up paint, I'm going to give that a try. Okay. This is, I don't have any brush paint that matches this. So what I've done in the past is like there, okay, where I've had, I don't remember what that was for, something gray on the submarine. I make a little puddle in here, a tiny little puddle. I don't need much, just that. And hopefully I can get some on the brush. And touch it just touch the spot. That one worked. This one. Bit more of this. Guess that'll do. Kind of the solvent in there kind of dissolved the brass paint a little bit. But with the naked eye, my naked eye, I can't really see it. Okay, this bulkhead, other than really we need a pin or a nail, what there is a blob. Plastic underneath it. Can't tell. Okay. I'm going to declare this a success. Here, let's look. These are the conduits. Okay. All now painted silver, and the brackets painted brass. I think it came out okay. You would think maybe like this radiator or whatever it was, or maybe some of this stuff, some of this wiring here and here would be painted too, but it's really tempting to try, but it's not painted on the model, on the box top. Just these things. So whatever these are, these lines, they're just detail, but they're not painted. Just so tempting to try. But those are really tiny. They're like the size of the bracket. So it's not impossible to do it. It's just really difficult to do it. I'm going to take this off for a moment. And I would bring the box top over, but it's really big and clumsy. But I'm going to walk over, if you can excuse me for just a moment. I'm going to walk over to the box top and take one more look at it, to make sure that I'm not missing something, some detail that should be painted. Okay, I checked again, and I'm glad I did because, in fact, it is. It is painted on the model box top. These are painted silver, and there's little brackets on them that are painted brass. So these little lines, are supposed to be painted. So there, me. Good thing I checked. It looked like they should have been. I was kind of hoping they weren't, but there it is. So, yeah, this will be a little bit of a challenge. We'll see how it goes. They're much, much, much smaller than the ones I painted originally. So what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be using little bits of paint because as it congeals, it's not going to work very well. When it's fresh out of the tube like that. So it is getting on the brackets, which is okay because they'll get painted later. So tiny. Almost like so small that it just like gives the impression of being painted silver. Just went off the edge a little bit there. Doing pretty well, but I got some there. I just caught it with the brush. And it's pretty obvious, so I'll have to try the old touch-up thing again. Hopefully it will work again. This might have been one of those things where it's ignorance is bliss, right? Okay, well, I've got two spots that require touch up. It's not too bad. Now I need to do these here. Yeah, see, that's thickened up on me. It makes a big difference in terms of spreadability. You know, unless I bring the camera way down close, you can't really see that anything is happening. But if I did, then I wouldn't be able to put my head there. You need to rest the piece on the workbench. Otherwise, it's not steady enough. It's just a little maze of tubes here. Lines really are that fine. So seriously, when I looked at the box top the first 5 times, I didn't see that these lines had been painted. It was only when I went there and said, I really need to be sure. It's hard to reach. Messed it up a little bit. Yeah, there's several touch-up spots. A couple of them are pretty obvious. Okay, now I need to get my bracket color out. Yep. Sorry, I went silent again. So yeah, back to Gilligan's Island. So Marianne got to have her name in the theme song. It might not have been for the best reason. Just that she had no social role other than simply being Marianne. Not a millionaire, not the spouse of a millionaire, not a skipper, not a movie star, not a professor. What was Marianne? Just being Marianne. There, looks like right near the end, I was having trouble either reaching or staying steady. Yeah. Trying to make sure that there aren't any hidden brackets here. And some junction boxes. Big mess there. Okay. You know, that spray paint, there's a lot of it actually worked. I need to let it set for a bit so that there isn't as much solvent in it. That makes a difference. That spot's gone. Anyway, I need a little more. I knew there was another spot somewhere. Yeah, we took care of it. Especially this one. That one was really an obvious flaw. No, it's not there. I like the flaws that aren't there anymore. This is kind of a problem back here. That other one's gone. All right. Let me clean this off. Doing on the time here. Okay. What I'm going to do First of all, really clean this brush because I'm going to need it again. No, probably need that again later. Yuck. So I'm going to celebrate the painting of all the little pipes, the detail pipes on this, which is a very visible part. This is the top bulkhead of the service module. So when one takes the command module off, and all of these are separate from each other, okay? They all separate from each other. When you take the command module off, this shows. And it shows in a significant way. Oh my, there was just another piece of plastic flaw there. I still have this paint. I scraped a little bit off because there was a flaw. I keep trying to catch them all, keep trying to make sure that I've got them caught. And then I don't. I'm going to use the denatured alcohol in here. Anyway, here, I'll bring the camera down and you can admire my conduit painting, including all the tiny little pipes and brackets and stuff around there. Trying to make sure my brush is thoroughly clean for the next bit, which will happen after break. What needs to be done to this part now is that this section that's white needs to be painted gold. And so this needs to be masked here. But I guess that's colored enough. The whole rim needs to be masked, and then this needs to be covered over because after having gone through the process of painting all of these little pipe details on the bulkhead, I don't want to get gold paint all over it, right? So the rim will stay this grayish green. So I'll be putting tape all around the outside and then covering that over with paper and then carefully masking these here and here so that this part can be painted gold. But that's another thing. This is the base, the bottom of the command of the service module. Okay, the rocket nozzle goes in here, so I'm going to be painting that flat black. That should be pretty straightforward. Okay, but there's all of these pipes all over the place. It looks like there's some electrical conduit. I'm going to paint that the silver that I've painted already. I'm going to paint the pipes a little bit darker color. Just to differentiate them. So like the thin ones will be painted the silver that I just used. There's some fittings. Those might be brass. Some brackets that'll be brass. There's a couple of radiators. I thought I filled that in. Ugh. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be painting that radiator dark gray, but it's got a hole in it, and I thought I had filled it in. Maybe they both did, and I only filled one in. Or maybe I'll just leave it. I don't know. I guess I'll just leave it. At some point, you just can't do too much. But these are radiators. I want to paint the radiator this dark color to differentiate it. So I've got, I'm going to use 3 different silver colors on this, plus the brass brackets. The lighter color for the fine conduit, okay? A darker color for the heavier pipes, and then a darker color yet for the radiators. So all of this spaghetti kind of stuff on here is going to have some sort of metallic paint on it. Basically everything except the circular things, which are the bottoms of the tanks. You know, I'm just using the different colors just, you know, because. See how this goes, right? I don't know if you can see it. There's an indent there, right? And that indent is a molding flaw. It is. It's just because the other one doesn't have it. And I thought that I had successfully filled it in. No, I think I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this just before break. I hope it's not a mistake. I'm going to fill it in. Since it's going to be painted a different color, it's okay if I fill it in and sand it. I'm using this. This is spackling. It dries actually really fast. So I should, if it turns white, should actually be able to sand it and paint it yet during this stream. Those radiators will be the last things painted anyway. I'm getting a toothpick. Yeah. This is like some wall primers. If you ever paint a room, some primers nowadays will go on pink, and when they dry, they turn white. Do not get on the surface below, because I don't want to sand anything down there. I don't want that paint to come off. In fact, if I can get this smooth enough, I'll hardly need to do any sanding at all. I really think this is a good thing to do. So again, this bit is done now. I just need to do a whole lot of taping on it. A whole lot of taping to make sure that when I spray paint that little section gold, that this doesn't get any paint on it. And then the same thing's going to happen here. When I paint this little section gold, I don't care much about here. I'm not going to want to get any paint on this surface. Take this brush, and I'm going to grab one that's also very fine pointed, but a little bit bigger for like the bigger conduits. I think I need to do these. I need to paint them from the bottom up, right? Up so that I don't have to reach down, but that I can paint and then paint over and then paint over. Wow, there's a lot of pipes on here, all kind of jumbled together. Nice. But there it is. That's the Apollo model. I'm going to take a break. I will be back in more or less a half hour, and then we'll be spreading different colors on this one, and hopefully it will not. Hopefully it will go almost as well as this one did. I'm going to get a clean paper towel and cover that up so that nothing gets on it during the short period of time that I'm gone. And I'm remembering I'm going to take this up and charge it just to make sure that the light stays alive while I'm doing the painting on that. So I'll be back in a bit. See you then. Back. Okay. There was a malfunction on the Stream Deck. It had me confused. It looked like the break was still going on or hadn't started yet. Okay. Well, I got a little bit of a charge on these so that the light will light up at least hopefully long enough to get something done on the pipes on this beast. So I got this done, and I think it came out okay. I think for the most part that looks pretty decent. And the touching up I did stayed touched up. I don't see any huge flaws. So this piece is done. Seriously, you had a treadmill fire? Wow, that's unique. But so you missed this. You missed this highly detailed, not very relaxing painting. You also got to miss my monologue. Smoking's not good for your health. I guess it's true even if you're a treadmill. I'm hoping you unplugged it and that it is not any longer spewing smoke. Yeah, really. That was important to do that. I need to find a place to put these things. I can't even get the friggin' paper napkins right today. Just some days just are days, you know? Like your day. At least I didn't have anything start on fire. Well, there's just a jumble of stuff here now. So the next step is to paint this maze of pipes on the base of the well, no kidding. This was a fairly new thing. Now you have to haul. Really? You have to haul your that was your standing treadmill. Yeah, the one that you can walk on while you're working. Oh, that's a shame. It wasn't very old, was it? Well, let me do some flips for you then. I mean, I'll even flip this big piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, sear 5-1. Sear versus no sear. So I'm going to go on for a while painting this stuff. We'll see how much I can get done by 2:00 today. It's a pretty slow process, I must say. Slow and tedious process. I'm going to try to use a slightly larger brush and see how it works. And the plan here is to work from the bottom up. So these conduits and things that are near the bottom are going to get painted first, and then they're layered. Like this one has 3 layers of pipes. 2. They're just wow, that's quite a maze of things. Yeah, sometimes you get what you pay for, right? You buy cheap, you get cheap. But you would expect that it would last. Well, you would expect at least it not to burn up. Like the motor probably just gave up. So the bottom layer is going to be chainmail silver, a little bit darker color. And then these smaller conduits, these littler conduits, the bigger ones are chainmail, the smaller ones are going to be the silver that I used earlier on the other one. And the reason is just so that they're not all the same color. I'm going to make my job harder so that there's contrast. And then this dark color I'm going to be using for the 2 radiators, this radiator and the one here where I just did a fill in to a gap that was there. It was just an opening. And it'll still be there, but it won't be as obvious. But yeah, hopefully this chainmail silver is still good. It's been around a long time. It was like one of the very first colors of paint we bought. This is going to go I'll just let you know ahead of time, this is going to go very, very slowly as I try to paint the parts that need to be painted and not paint the parts that aren't. In some ways, I think these are more difficult than the other ones because I could kind of paint the tops of them and not have to go all the way down to the base. But these show in a way where I just need to go all the way down to the substrate that on which it's based. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I may end up having to do a fair amount of blue, green, gray, green touch up with this. I'm hoping not. We'll see how this goes. Doing this after break is always more of a challenge because lose a little bit of focus after break. So if it starts going poorly, I'll just let you know ahead of time. If it starts going poorly, I'm going to stop and not try to do more than I can safely. Just say. So these pipes, they're just going to be a challenge. This might have to be done without a monologue. Just as a warning. So without any music, without any conversation about 1960s television, you might just have to watch me almost not being on camera. I tried to paint conduit, bottom bulkhead of the Apollo model here. When I first looked at the instructions, it looked like the instructions basically said, don't bother painting this stuff. And I thought, well, that's both good and bad. It's good in that painting it would be difficult. It's bad in that all of this detail was molded on. And if it's not painted, why bother, right? But then I looked at the instructions. The painting directions are just really not very good. They're unclear. They're lettered. They could be numbered, but they're lettered, and the letters, the E and the F, are indistinguishable. One is gold and one is silver, and that makes a difference. Different colors, right? So yeah, sitting here saying what can I do? I can't really get a good monologue going because this is requiring a good deal of attention, really. At least this brush is working. That it spreads more paint than the little bitty brush did on the other conduit. Since the surface area is larger, that is a good thing. Yeah, something's got the dogs going. I don't know if you can hear them because of the filter on the microphone. Like this color kind of flows into this one. This is also large, those large pipes. They look like they kind of connect, like there's a connection of some sort. They're a welded connection. It's kind of meanders all over the place. And this goes up against a smaller pipe. I'm just going to paint right up onto it so that there isn't any gap in the color. Since I'm painting onto another color later, it's not like I'm painting against the gray-green where I do not want this to touch because it's not going to get painted later unless I absolutely have to fix a problem. So I'm making a decision that painting all the way down to the surface below it, just most of the way down. I'm starting to get lumps in the paint. Not bubbles, they're just like things, pieces that are drying, I think. It's almost a judgment call. Like this pipe goes around here, but it goes all the way down to the bottom. It's like it's less of a pipe and more of a. I'm not sure. I mean, it's just I can understand that they had to mold it that way, but I'm not sure then how to paint it. See what I mean? There's a pipe here, right? But what's that underneath it? It isn't pipe, and it's not really. It's just a gap. So I think I'm going to have to very carefully make a decision. I mean, it's not so much. It's not too complicated with these really big ones. Just paint the whole thing. They're kind of laying on the surface. At least that's the impression they're trying to give. That smaller one, yeah, I'm not sure. Here, What we have is a junction of pipes. Oh, that was almost, yeah. So the biggest oops come from getting the paint up to or away from the surface being painted. And those oopses are pretty bad. So this tangle of conduits and pipes, it's just a little bit challenging because they're not perfectly molded so that one can tell where one starts and one ends. There's this pipe that curls around here, and then it goes here. But then what? Okay, is it like end there? Does it go up into this? Underneath it? I can't really tell. I can't tell what the intent was. I'm just gonna paint them and hope that even though they don't maybe accurately represent the piping or the conduiting or whatever these are of the Apollo, they at least look like they should be the way they are. I mean, some of them are pretty clear, but right there, that tangle is just a tangle. That's where it would make sense just to paint everything the same color. But I'm not doing it sensibly, so. Coming up. I guess theoretically there's supposed to be a separation between the pipes there. I painted it over because that's how it looked. At least this one is pretty clear. It starts and where it ends. The curvature makes it a little bit challenging. It does indeed. So if anyone's in chat, I will look up in a bit after I finish these. Little bit of a challenge here. Oh, thanks for watching, and thanks for joining in chat. Yeah, our D&D, I should advertise that while I'm doing this. I should advertise our Dungeons and Dragons show, because Dice and Dungeons is all about Dungeons and Dragons. That is what we do. This painting stream is a sideshow. It really is. That's that's an adequate and accurate label for it. Because the painting stream started as a way of presenting the work we did in preparing the dungeon tiles for our D&D show. And the model building was a spin-off of that to fill the time when there weren't any dungeon tiles or show-based minifigs to work on. And that's how this all happened. Now it's taken on a life of its own, mainly because we don't have any minifigs or dungeon tiles to paint right now, and also because I like finishing these models. So, yeah, 3 Sundays a month with a live chat on Twitch at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. It happens to be Eastern Daylight Time. Later in the fall, it'll be Eastern Standard Time. We stay current with the clock. Let's see. This will be a different color. This is going to be painted later, the top one, because this is going to be an intermediate color. So it looks like down here, this is the darker color here. But thanks for watching, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's fun doing it too. That's the really neat part, is that it's not just fun to watch our D&D show. It's a lot of fun producing our D&D show. And you can tell it's fun because as players, we're having fun. Which is the whole point of doing Dungeons and Dragons, which is to have a good time doing it. So I think these little ones are supposed to be pipes, but they're raised up off the surface so much that I'm not sure it can be done that way. I think these big ones are supposed to be pipes too, but it's like they go all the way down to the bottom, and the one that has a bracket goes all the way down to the bottom too. So that's how I'm painting them. Yeah, the paint is starting to gum up, and so I'm getting particles, or at least that's what it looks like. They look like particles, look like bubbles. So I'm going to have to give up on this particular one and try to get these pieces out of here. Squeeze out some fresh paint. This is one of those things where as I rotate it, I just see more and more surfaces that need to be painted. Because at some point you would think, well, that which needs to be painted has been painted. One would think. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's a surface that needs to be painted or whether it's a reflection. Oh, I'm destroying the point on my brush here. Okay. I still need to do some pieces here and here. So I'm going to just give this a stir and squeeze out some fresh stuff. our our DM is pretty amazing. Our DM created the world in which we're playing. The whole world, the bespoke world that she did, is all hers. And then as players, we don't intentionally mess up, but we're easily distracted. Our characters, if not as players, at least our characters become easily distracted with squirrel syndrome. It's like we go into a magic shop. What do you do there? You get distracted. You buy things. You go to the discount bin. Right? I mean, it's just stuff like that. And there have been times when the DM has prepared just really intricate things, like an intricate battle maybe, or a set of traps or something. And then we as players just screw it all up. We did that in a significant way not too terribly long ago. There was a combat prepared. It would have been an amazing combat. It would have been a lot of fun for everybody. We would have come close to dying probably, or at least my character would have. And we screwed it up we ran away. We figured out how to escape, and rather than fight like we were supposed to, we just jumped out a window and ran away. I am speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for you. How could I possibly speak for you? I can't do your voice. You know that. I've tried and have not been able to do your voice. I'm speaking for myself. Okay, I might as well paint this. You do plenty of speaking for nines. Nines is never at a loss for words, it seems. Character sometimes is at a loss for words, and so just doesn't say them. My character is also sometimes quite easily confused by what's going on or what should be going on, and so that just kind of adds to it all. I have to be redirected and corrected sometimes, not as a player, as a character. When you're a member of a certain demographic, sometimes you do need a little bit of reminding. Why are you here anyway? I don't know. Do things. I'm here to do something. I wonder what that thing was. Right? That does happen. It's kind of like the walking into a room, and there was a reason you walked into the room, because you walked into the room. And there you are in the room saying, gee, there was some reason why I walked into this room. Then you can do fun things, like if your spouse is there, you can say, hey, do you remember why I walked into this room? And they'll go, why would I remember why you walked into this room? And go, I don't know. I was hoping you did, because I don't. And then you leave the room. But when you leave the room and you remember why you walked into the room, I just kind of repeat the same back and forth. That kind of thing happens. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Low intelligence, but like super high charisma for some reason. Being a bard, that's just part of it. I play a character whose wisdom is not that bad, even though you'd never guess it from the way the character just, talks about what's going on sometimes. My character, the Furbog Fighter, is actually brighter than he sometimes appears to be on the show, but has a -1 charisma modifier. So that makes for interesting things occasionally. Done with this bit here. There's a bracket that'll get painted a different color. Once I'm done with this bit of piping, I'm going to squeeze out some new paint because this is starting to get too thick to use. That's right. And it is. You have fun playing a cat, although through an unfortunate series of curses, Nines' tabaxi cat form is now a badger. Although the personality hasn't changed, the personality of the badger is still very much tabaxi-ish. So even though physical form might have changed, it didn't change the essence of tabaxiness. There's a lot of piping here. Whee! Oh yeah, Gomer Pyle. What can you say about Gomer Pyle? Neighbors. Yeah, this. I think it was probably a fake. Even sure where it was supposed to be from. It was kind of southern, kind of Appalachian, kind of Ozarkian. It's really hard to tell what Gomer Pyle's accent was and whether it was in any way, shape, or form authentic or just, the way he talked as a character. Don't know that. What we do know is that one time he was like, here, sing something. And he had this baritone. It was just a real shocker. I said, oh, you talk like, golly, high pitched kind of whatever. And singing a baritone. Anyway, that was a thing for a while. Yeah, Gomer Pyle was in the Marines. Some of those shows were, they went on for one season after the other. But if you think back at it, each show was the same as the other show. I mean, each episode in the season, same sort of things happened over and over. It's just a thing. But we watched them maybe because it was familiar. maybe it was because we could actually kind of predict, oh, I know what's going to happen next. Made us feel like we were, I don't know, clever. Knowing what Gomer Pyle was going to do next, I guess, isn't, real sign of cleverness, but there it was. I didn't think of that because I said golly for some reason, having to do with what I'm doing here. Sounded to me a little bit like Gomer Pyle. And then I got me off onto a Gomer Pyle tangent because that's how this show works. Yeah. That's a really fine example of our squirrel behavior, which is our DM starts to describe something, right? And the downside of describing something is you describe objects. And what does our party do with objects? We take them. I mean, what else can you do? Why are they there? It's like the old point and click games, right? If you can click on it, you put it in your inventory because you never know. You never know when that item might be essential, no matter how trivial it might seem or irrelevant. And so we, all having played those sorts of games, know that if something exists, we'd best take it. You'd think our DM would have learned by now. The room is entirely empty. Well, then, of course, we wouldn't believe that. So then we'd do like detect magic, look for invisible objects. Picking something off there's like little bumps on the top of that pipe. I've got paint on my thumb, which will then lead to the temptation of that paint to leap off onto another surface. Okay, so I'm just looking around here. I'm painting the large pipes. And I'm painting them up to where they meet up with the smaller pipes along here. Now, I'm not painting that yet because when I paint the smaller pipes, I'll get the smaller pipe color onto the larger pipe. I just know that will happen. And so in anticipation of that, I will not paint the larger pipes until after the smaller pipes are painted, so that I will be painting over the paint that I'll be painting by going outside the lines. I do want to paint as much of the larger pipe as possible. Painted. And at the same time, trying to minimize the amount of gray-green touching up that I might have to do. So far, there isn't very much of it. Part is hard to see, but let's see just enough of it to see that it needs to be painted, and it isn't. Okay, so this is all small pipe color. Let's connect. Oh, there's a. I'm going to paint that the radiator color. Small pipe, small pipe, small pipe. Hard to tell where the large one ends and the small one begins here. A little bit of touch up there, maybe on the end. big bracket there. In this case, I'm not sure if I want to make the brackets. There's not very many of them. They're very different than the ones that are holding the conduit on the other one. This paint isn't, just leaves little globs of things here and there. Again. Clean this brush. For the smaller pipes, I'm going to use the smaller brush. It's going to work pretty well. But that's really true. Yeah, well, the problem with that Who is that Nines has like zero strength, especially now as a badger. And so when it comes to time to steal things that are bolted down, usually you end up calling on my character, who has more strength, to unbolt them for you. So then I get caught up in a heist. It's this lighter silver color. I got like 45 minutes. I might be able to finish this. I'm not going to get the taping done today. Now, the taping that is involved in being able to spray paint this thing gold on the other side, I'm just not going to do that. So on Friday, I think Friday is, I'm not sure what's going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a lot of taping in preparation for spray painting. As is usual. Actually, that's a really good idea. Like if you were, who hasn't done that yet? Who hasn't found out whether or not the giant expanding clown shoes, the kind that get really, really big, whether or not they might allow Who to walk on water? I mean, that's a possibility. That's worth testing sometime. And I'd recommend that Who tests that in very, very deep water, not just, some sort of wimpy test. Where you're on like 3 feet of water, and if it doesn't work, you only, well, do they even work in badger form? We don't know that for sure, do we? We don't know if the giant expanding shoes will even work when Who is a badger. Hmm. Something to think about. We now have a serious question about how a very significant piece of equipment works or doesn't. we do know that those clown shoes will probably save the party sometime. They are just exactly the kind of piece of equipment that, in the most bizarre and unexpected way, turns out to be critical. Why else would we have them? Why would we have them in our inventory if they weren't an essential piece of solving some sort of puzzle-like equivalent? We must ask that question. We must. What I've decided to do here, whether intentional or not, is painting the tops of these, but not the bottoms, so that it just looks like a pipe, unlike the bigger ones that are very, very big conduit kinds of things. I think it's better that way. This other one, and then I'm going to do the one that runs through there. Change the color right here. Somewhat ambiguous. Clean the brush here. Paint is gumming up and forming a ball on the surface of the tip of the brush. You might need some fresh paint too. Making the DM mad like you're really concerned about that. I like these ideas. Side painting. Oh, yeah. Here. Paint. Giant clown shoes can be a pretty legitimate distraction. I mean, that's a very legitimate use for them. We'll keep the dialogue going because I really need to focus on this. This is more difficult than I'd like it to be. I do say that fairly often because, in fact, almost all of this is more difficult than I would like it to be. I'd like it to be not very difficult at all, but just have to live with it when it is. make arbitrary decisions about where the pipe is and isn't here, because it's not molded accurately. These are just pipes on the surface. So trying to make them look like I think they should look like, not necessarily the way they're molded. Pipes aren't just these long, thin things that go all the way down to the bottom. Pipes. Painting them like that. Here, it looks like they go that far, so I'm able to use this as a guide. This little part here as to where the pipe is and where it isn't. And I hope it turns out okay. Keeping the lines straight. So thank you for bearing with me as I do this sort of delicate bit of painting there. I'm hoping that okay, you gave who an idea that may end up actually happening. The good thing our DM doesn't routinely watch this stream. Otherwise, she would be prepared for it, and then it would lose its effectiveness. But she's definitely not going to be prepared for it. And so there is that. Perfect line, but this is probably the best I can do right now. Oh, there's a lot of this stuff. A lot of pipes on the back and the bottom end of this. No doubt in the real thing, there were a lot of pipes on this. So as I said earlier, when I first looked at the instructions, because this particular component is not shown on the box top. Okay. And because of that, I wasn't sure that it needed to be painted in any particular way. And in fact, I wasn't planning on it. But then I looked at the painting instructions, the very ambiguous, not very helpful at all painting instructions. And it said that these pipes are all supposed to be painted, because why did we bother molding them in as detail if you weren't going to do something with them, right? It didn't quite say that, but it might as well have. Why did we bother if you're not going to bother? I don't know why. So here we are, all together, watching me make an effort to paint all these weird little pipes all over the place here. Make them look good, or at least adequate. Here, I can paint right into the surface of the pipe above it, because that will be painted another color. Painted. Yeah, there's not too much difference in the tone of the two different pipe colors, but there is enough to differentiate them, which is what I want to bother doing. Yeah, I'm just checking to make sure that I have all the small ones painted on all of the relevant surfaces. And then I've just got this part here of the darker color to do then. And then the brackets and the radiators. Yeah, I think that looks okay. I am satisfied with how that turned out. Okay. Group of rogues. No, that's why it would be a one shot. I mean, even I can tell that. That would definitely be a one shot, because no, definitely cannot play well with others. And the group would fall apart before it hardly even started. But that might be fun as a one shot, though. That might be kind of fun. I know Alexis, our DM, is coming up with various ideas for one shots. That isn't one of them. but it might be kind of fun to try. So this piece of piping here, this needs to be completed. Just as the paint congeals, there's just these tiny little lumps that keep forming. Metallic against metallic is sometimes just makes it all reflects. It's reflecting itself, and so it's hard to tell what's getting painted well and what isn't. Yeah, I don't know. See that? That looks like it's not painted, but then I rotated and it clearly is. So there. Is that? What is that? Little bumps. I'm not seeing any obvious places that need touch up. Maybe here. I just need to paint the radiators now. Checking. I think I've got all the pipes painted. The brackets need to be painted and the radiators. I'm going to paint the brackets the same dark color as the radiators. I'm not going to use the brass. Actually, I'm going to leave that one as is. I'm going to paint these black, the darker color, because I kind of I was thinking of painting them over, but this one looks pretty good just the way it is. So I'm going to leave that. Actually, I should do the other ones too. I wonder if I can take the metallic off and leave the gray-green underneath. I think that's working. I think I'm just going to leave those as they are. They look okay like that. Just a little bit of cleanup. Yeah, I should have thought of that before I painted on them. I'm going to leave the brackets gray-green. They're pretty heavy-duty brackets. I'm just going to paint the radiators now because I want the radiators, since they're put there, to kind of stand out. And I'm going to use the darkest of the This is really thick. I hope it works. So this one, I just need to take the tiniest bit of very, very fine-grained sandpaper, which I put here, carefully put it away where I could find it where it was away. It's the 2000 grit. This is the part I filled in earlier. Banding it down a little bit to get some of the excess spackle out of the way here. Okay, so I'm going to paint the radiators now because they just should stand out. They are radiators, and they actually extend beyond the they show through a gap. There's a little gap in the thing that goes over these. They show through. Paint gums up like immediately. Fortunately, there isn't very much of them. I mean by very much of them, it's not just there's only 2 of them, but I mean there's not much surface area. Which is good because this particular paint is not behaving very nicely. It still stays on camera. Huh. I think this is looking okay. Let's see if I can get the other one to look okay. I'm glad I'm painting the radiator metallic. It's a functioning piece. It's not just like maybe this, which is like a junction box or that. Okay. And it definitely is designed to show on the outside when the model is put together, because there's gaps in the covering that go over. I'm also glad I filled in the hole. Even though it's not perfect, it doesn't have a big divot in it, which it did before. It looked like there was a problem. so little of this paint, it's not worth trying to thin it, but it would be nicer if it were thin. But it's not, so I'm making do with what it is. Thank you both for carrying on a dialogue while I went silent while I'm painting the radiators on the bottom bulkhead of the service module. Maybe someday we'll get the music back, and then I won't feel so obligated to speculate whether or not Marianne had a social role other than just being Marianne, because everybody else on Gilligan's Island had a very specific one. Even if it was something, as traditional as being the wife of a millionaire. But they all did, except for Marianne, who, because of that, got to be named in the theme song, as opposed to described by her social role. Star professor, who remained nameless and were described only by what they did or what they had, in the case of being a millionaire. Gilligan. Named in the theme song. Go figure. Okay. So as I'm looking around on this, I am going to say I'm fairly well satisfied with how it turned out. I'm going to show it off again after I clean this brush. No, nothing worse than a discount you can't get. Okay, I'm going to take these off. Remember to actually take them back upstairs and charge them. Not that I'll be using them Friday. Yeah, and then show this off. This took quite a while to paint all those little spaghetti-ish kinds of things. I ended up using two different colors, which are kind of indistinguishable here, but you can kind of see that one is darker. Maybe I should hold it in the camera. That one is, the heavier ones are darker than the lighter ones. You can kind of see them, especially, not necessarily here where they are in contact, but, in that area. The radiators look pretty decent. Okay, and I would show you why they are what they are. Maybe I can without messing them up. This is the bottom panel this is the bottom bulkhead of the service module. This is the panel that goes over it and which holds the rocket engine. Oh, I forgot that. I still got a little bit of time left. I'm going to fix that problem. That needs to be painted black. So there, we'll put that there. I'm going to use this brush and paint the inside of that flat black. And I was a little bit torn about whether I would paint the entire inside flat black or just the very base of it. The outside is part of a bracket, okay, that holds the rocket nozzle, which is way over there. I'm not going to try to reach it. I'll knock stuff over if I do. But the inside of that has to be painted flat black because the inside is the inside of the rocket nozzle. Okay, that actually should probably be cut out, but it's not. So if I can, I'm going to try to get the edging of it so that it stays the gray-green, because that's like a thing that's holding it. Okay. So I'm going to try that. Hopefully I will succeed and it will look okay. I'm going to have to take my glasses off again so I can see up close. I thought I was done, but as is typical with the models that I work on, there's always something. It's like, oh, there's a thing that needed to be done that didn't get done. That I thought I was done, and now I'm not. Just pushing the paint up to the edge. This is something that will actually not really be seen. Well, I can't say that. If you take the outer part off, the rocket nozzle comes off, and then this becomes apparent. It looks glossy going on, but this paint does turn into a pretty nice flat black. And it actually levels itself pretty well too, which is nice. Okay, well, when I was, thinking about what might happen, I was hoping that I could get all of this painting done in less time than it took, and that I'd actually be able to get the taping done for the next step, which is painting gold stuff. The interior detail of the interior partitions, basically, where the detail is shown. I was hoping to have gotten that done so that I could actually do the gold spray painting tomorrow and do some assembly on Friday, but no, it just took longer than I thought it would, as things usually do. Okay. I mean, I'll always talk about what I'd like to accomplish, then I hardly ever, maybe never, have accomplished everything that I was hoping to get done during one of these streams. Okay, that edge isn't perfect, but it'll do. I'm glad I remembered that. Otherwise, I'd have to do it again later. There. So that'll turn flat black. It'll look a lot better then. I got the piping done. I think I got it all painted. I didn't miss any. So let me show to you, by getting these things out of the way, I'll clean the brush a little bit later, show to you what I managed to accomplish today, which was a few things. I managed to sand down where I filled in with adding, not perfect, but mostly filled in the bottom of the shield here. You can still feel it a little bit, it will show up. But I got these guys painted. I got the pipe, the wiring conduit, and the brackets on this done, including the really, really fine detail here and here that I wasn't anticipating painting, but ended up having to anyway. And I think that turned out, I would say this is a B+ thing. This is really close to being A- work. The way it turned out, I'm very surprised and happy that it looks as good as it did. And then this doesn't look too bad. The major problem with it isn't so much the painting, it's just like the molding of it, the way it was molded, and not really knowing what was piping and what was support structures and that sort of thing. But I think it came out all right. And when you're looking at it, it's going to look okay. So these pieces are, once the paint dries, will be done. And on Friday, I'm pretty much going to be just doing a lot of taping. And they'll see how long it takes. That always takes longer than it should as well. But if I get it done, one of two things will happen. There might be more things, but the two things I'm thinking of right off the bat are that I will end early, or that I'll start pulling the pieces out for the lunar excursion module. But I'll probably be just showing you, a bunch of test fitting, and the taping will probably just take longer than I would think it should. Yeah, these need to be taped pretty carefully because I don't want to mess up this side. This doesn't need to be taped all that carefully because you won't ever see the backside that I bothered taping and cleaning up. Okay. But this is painted gold. Both sides of this are painted gold. These white triangular areas are painted gold. And once those are painted gold, then this actually can get assembled. These 4 pieces get assembled. And then once those are assembled, the interior detail, which is in that box, can be installed in here. And then the stuff that's left is the shell, the outside, which isn't trivial. There's a lot of it. There's a part of it that's going to take quite a while, which involves sealing the seam in the 2 parts, this part and this part. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for the chat. Thank you. I think I can thank you for giving who plays Knights or Tabaxi Bard ideas of how to mess up our dungeon master, who will be trying to do some sort of campaign that would be really fun and interesting, and will be derailed, almost certainly derailed, by something that Nines will do based on the chat today. If you possibly can, catch our Dungeons and Dragons show with a live chat Sundays, 3 Sundays a month at 2:00 on Twitch. And if you can't, that's very understandable. Catch up on YouTube. And if you want to just catch up like during your commute, you can listen to it as a podcast. If you are watching this or the Twitch Dungeons and Dragons show, please become a follower. Tell everybody you know. I'm getting to it. Tell everybody you know. Tell perfect strangers how amazing it is and how they should watch it and listen to it as well. How they should become a follower. How they should go to YouTube and become a sponsor. And ta-da! Go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and you can become a patron. And if you become a patron, you get to get exclusive access to our hilarious warm-up sessions, our recently introduced Hot Takes from Cold Reads, where we give a prompt to artificial intelligence and ask it to respond, and then cold read the responses. And they are, I don't know. Let me just say that I am not, given the responses that we've been getting to our prompts, I am not concerned about the future of the world being taken over by AI. Okay. I am just not worried about that. Even if you misuse it, it's going to give you just such nonsense that people will catch on to what you're doing, at least based on our experience. So yeah, become a patron, patreon.com/dice and dungeons. Tell everyone about how wonderful it is, because it is. And I want to thank everybody for watching this. What did it take? Like 3 hours, 3.5 hours of painting to get this done? Yep, I am not quick at accomplishing these things, I guess. Come back on Friday at more or less 10 o'clock in the morning this coming Friday, and I will resume with pretty much just taping. I just need to tape all these things up so that I can get them painted. And then we'll see what happens with the rest of the time on Friday, if there is anything left after the taping. And not the taping as in recording, but the taping as in sticking tape on these things so that I can paint that part without getting that paint on everything else. But these came out pretty well. I'm kind of pleased by that. Yeah, cover them up, say thanks again, and see everybody on Friday.